today we are talking about hinging our pelvis on our femurs, our thigh bones. And you're gonna use this all the time. You basically are going to hinge your pelvis every time you squat. And if you say, well, Maria, I don't squat, I'm gonna say, well, start squatting. But first of all, you do. Every time you sit down, you're going into a squat. So why not learn how to move our pelvis and keep our spine safe and our neck space safe while we bend at our hips, right? So we've got our pelvis, okay? It is where our center of gravity lives, and it sits on our two thigh bones, our femurs. And I want you to think that your neck is gonna stay long, your chin is tucked. Your chest is gonna stay wide, your ribs are gonna stay in your body, and your pelvis is going to stay in neutral. Remember, neutral spine or neutral pelvis is when our top of our hip bones and the back of our hip bones are pretty level, but in women, we're more into an anterior tilt than men. So you could also check by seeing if your hip bones, if you put your heel of your hand on your hip bones, and then you put your fingertips together on your pubic bone, are those on the same plane? So if I'm here, they're pretty even. If I'm standing like this and my heel of my hand goes forward, I'm more anteriorly tilted. And if I stand like this and my heel of my hand goes inward and my fingertips lift up, I'm more posteriorly tilted. So we want to think we're trying to be as neutral as possible. So I'm going to use my Pilates barrel, but you can stand next to your kitchen counter or just use a nice solid chair just for balance. We're not worrying about balance right now. We're trying to see if we can feel what we're trying to feel for this move, okay? So I'm going to start by standing on my left leg, and I see you guys can't really see my feet, so maybe I'll push away a little bit farther. Okay, so I'm standing on my left leg and my left knee is soft. I'm not gonna hyperextend my knee, but it's not in a bend, okay? And we're gonna keep all those cues I talked about, basically keeping what I call your Pilates rectangle, keeping your masses lined up over one another and maintaining your spaces. And we're gonna think that this pelvis is going to hinge forward, and then we're gonna use these muscles right here to pull us back up to our neutral. So if my knee stays soft, I am not locking out in the back of my knee, and I'm not gripping onto my kitchen counter or my Pilates barrel with dear life. I'm just there so I don't have to really figure out the balance portion of this right now. I'm just thinking, can I keep all of my cues and just tip my pelvis forward and then tip my pelvis back. So these muscles are gonna shorten to pull your pelvis back up. So I want you to feel that in your side hip, because your side hip muscles are helping to hold you there, to help stabilize. And then those back, those low fibers of glutes, those upper fibers of hamstrings are what's working to pull the pelvis back up into that more shortened state. So we're gonna go ahead and do that on the other side. But first I wanna show you what we're not gonna do. We're not going to round our body forward and fall forward and stand up, right? So if we need to, get your Swiffer out, get a broomstick or a dowel and hold it, but then you can't hold on to your kitchen counter, but still practice maybe on two legs, hinging your pelvis forward and then hinging your pelvis back. And one thing I want to make sure is that we're not popping our ribs. So a lot of times when I tell clients to get their pelvis neutral or in a tilt, which today we're talking neutral, they'll pop their ribs out. But even in neutral spine, you don't want to be standing like this, right? We don't want to have those ribs popped out. So let's go to the other side. And this time I'm going to show you a progression. So if you can do 10, 15 of these, and they're feeling good, and you're feeling the work coming from the right spot, then you could make it more challenging. Well, one of the things you could do is let go. This is my less stable side, right? So you could stay close, but you could really think, can I focus on the tripod of my foot? So ball of my big toe, ball of my pinky toe, and my heel, keeping that stable and not locking out in my calf, behind my knee. I'm using these muscles to pull me back up. Okay, so going for balance could be a progression, Or you could grab a hold of a kettlebell or a free weight. You could still hold on to your kitchen counter lightly. And now with our other hand, now remember, we're not gonna round forward, so that weight cannot pull you out of your alignment. You gotta keep all your cues. We could tip our pelvis forward. Now we're adding in 10, 20 pounds of pulling up with these muscles here. So that's a nice progression. From there, we can progress into a squat, into a split squat, into a lunge, but really practicing moving your pelvis on your femurs, your thigh bones, and getting the feeling and understanding what's working and what should not be working. We're not locking out in our calves, we're not locking out in our knees, is going to help you have a better pelvic hinge, okay? One more thing I just want to share with you. When you tip forward, don't keep looking straight ahead because that's going to crank on your neck. So remember all your cues. I'm going to finish off here. Neck long, chin tucked, chest wide, ribs in, pelvis neutral. If you're my age, you might remember your grandmother having one of those yellow and red plastic birds on her windowsill that would dip into the water. Well, that's kind of what we're doing here. So good luck, give it a try, and reach out to me anytime on social media at boundless_balance or on Facebook, or shoot me an email.